Have you ever caught yourself living an entire future with someone before they have even shown they can be trusted with today? You are in bed, and instead of sleeping, you are playing a scene that has not happened. Their voice, their smile, the exact words they are going to say when they finally open up. The conversation is warm. The ending is safe. For a few minutes, the wish feels fulfilled, even though none of it is real. This is what living as if your wish is fulfilled actually looks like in the world of love. That famous idea, acting as if something is already true so the mind pulls it into existence, was never meant only for careers and fortunes. It is also the hidden machinery of how human beings attach to each other. Most people hear that phrase and picture money, success, a dream house. But here is what nobody tells you. You have probably been acting as if your wish is fulfilled for a very long time. And the wish you have been quietly fulfilling is not a thing you wanted to own. It is a person, a version of a person. And that version has been keeping you company in a world the real one never entered. Psychologically, this is the birth of a fantasy bond. The mind builds a second relationship on top of the first one, a copy of the person, polished and forgiving, that exists entirely inside you. The real relationship is messy and unpredictable. The fantasy relationship is flawless. So you do what every human mind does when it is handed two versions of reality. You start living inside the smoother one. You replay their last message and script their next one. You defend them to your friends using evidence only you have seen. You build entire evenings around a version of them that has never once shown up to dinner. Here is the part that makes this so powerful. The mind does not easily tell the difference between what it rehearses and what it experiences. Every imagined conversation, every future scene you replay, produces the same emotional response as if it were happening. This is why waiting feels so alive. This is why hope feels physically addictive. Your brain receives regular doses of a fulfilled wish, served by your own imagination, and cannot tell the difference between the dream and the delivery. So you keep living as if the silence is just a phase, as if their distance is temporary, as if the person who struggles to feel will suddenly feel once you love them the right way, once you understand them deeply enough, once you wait long enough for them to come around. And because you are living ahead of the evidence, you begin to project. Projection is a quiet trick of the mind. You take qualities they have never shown you and assign them anyway. You see patience in their distance because you need patience to survive their distance. You see depth in their silence because silence with depth feels more bearable than silence without it. You fill their emptiness with your own meaning, and then you fall in love with what you filled. Not with them, with your projection wearing their face. This pattern has a shape. People who attach this way feed on attention, certainty, and reassurance like a body feeds on food. But when the real person stays distant, something strange happens. The wish fulfillment engine works harder, not less. The more unavailable they become, the more vivid the inner version grows. The more vivid it grows, the more real it feels. The more real it feels, the more you are willing to sacrifice actual reality to protect it. You cancel plans so you are free in case they finally text. You reread old messages like scripture from a time when the wish actually seemed true. You build an entire identity around waiting, and you tell yourself that waiting is a form of love. But waiting is not love. Waiting is living in the future tense, and the future tense is the only tense where your wish is always fulfilled. In the past, the wish was not proven real. In the present, the evidence keeps disappointing you. Only the future is spacious enough to hold everything you need them to be. So you go there, again and again. And each time you return to the present, the crash is harder, and the need to escape back into the future is stronger. So here is what you are left with, and it is a question worth sitting with. You have been living as if your wish is fulfilled, beautifully, faithfully, every single day. But whose wish is being fulfilled? Because while you have been building an entire world around a person's potential, that person has been busy living as if their own wish is fulfilled too. And their wish does not look anything like yours. Their wish is the opposite of yours. You want closeness to finally arrive. They want closeness to finally stop. You are both acting as if a wish is already real, and the two wishes cannot exist in the same room. That is what comes next. Because once you understand the fancy running on the other side, the silence, the withdrawal, and the leaving will never look the same again. What does it cost a person to believe they need no one? Not in money, not in time, something deeper, something they may never admit out loud. Because the person you have been chasing, the one who goes quiet exactly when things begin to feel real, is not empty and is not cold. They are carrying a fantasy of their own, and it is the most important thing you will ever understand about them. Their wish is fulfilled. The wish is that they do not need you. There are two kinds of people who pull away, and they run on different engines. One of them decided somewhere deep and long ago that closeness is a trap. They do not avoid love because they do not want it. They avoid love because wanting it frightens them. The other burns to be close and then panics the moment intimacy actually arrives. They ache for connection, and when it finally comes, they feel suffocated by the very thing they asked for. Same exit, same silence, two completely different hearts behind it. And standing outside, you cannot see which engine you are dealing with because both of them produce the same behavior, the pull away, the mixed signals, the disappearing act. So here is the mechanism you have been missing. When closeness rises, something inside them activates, and it works like a security system. The moment love becomes real enough to matter, an alarm goes off, and a program you cannot see begins to shut the feeling down. This is not a choice. It is an automatic response, older than language, wired in long before you arrived. They do not wake up one morning and decide to stop caring. Somewhere below awareness, their mind decides that caring is dangerous, and a quiet strategy takes over. It has a name: deactivation. Suddenly, you are too much. Suddenly, they need space. Suddenly, the relationship feels like a weight they have to drag everywhere. And the strangest part is that they believe it. In that moment, distance feels like relief. Because for them, distance is the fulfilled wish. Distance is safety. Distance is the only version of life where nothing can hurt them anymore. This is what so many people get wrong about them. You read their withdrawal as rejection. You think they left because you were not enough. But the truth is far more unsettling. They left because you were becoming enough. The closer you got, the more you threatened something they built their entire identity around, the belief that they need no one. Love for them is not an invitation. It is a threat to the self. Every warm moment, every honest conversation, every night they let their guard down, moves them closer to a version of themselves they have spent years running from. The version that needs. The version that can be hurt. The version that depends on another person's presence to feel whole. So the closer they come to that version, the harder they pull away. Not because of you. Because of what you awaken. They are not protecting themselves from you. They are protecting the dream of standing alone, a dream of total control, a dream where nobody can reach them and nobody can wound them. And people do not abandon their dreams easily. They defend them. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is a wall being rebuilt, brick by brick, and sometimes there is no plan at all. Sometimes the exit happens mid-conversation. You say something tender, or you catch them in a moment of real closeness. The feeling floods in faster than they can process it. Their body mistakes intimacy for danger and hits the freeze response. They go numb, they go still. They tell you they need to think. They vanish. To them, this is not coldness. This is survival. Their body did what bodies do under threat. It shut down so it could make it through the night. And you are left holding a conversation that ended without warning, replaying your own words, wondering what you said wrong. You said nothing wrong. You simply got close enough to trigger the alarm. This is where the hot and cold comes from. They are not playing games. They are two impulses fighting inside one person. A part of them genuinely wants you. It reaches for you, shows up, opens up, lets you in. And another part, just as real, panics and retreats. So they text you at midnight and are gone by morning. They kiss you like they mean it and can barely look at you next week. Approach, retreat, approach, retreat. From the outside, it looks like manipulation. From the inside, it looks like war. And you are not a victim standing in the middle of their battlefield. You are collateral damage in a war they never learned how to stop. Their wish fulfilled is a life where nobody can reach them. Yours is a life where they finally let you in. Two fulfilled wishes, one room, something has to break. And that is exactly what happens when the silence finally takes over. Because under the right conditions, that silence stops being something they control. It becomes something they feel. And that, more than anything you ever said, is what wakes them up. Why does the person who ran from closeness keep looking over their shoulder the moment you stop chasing them? Think about that. Not why they left, not why they went silent, but why the silence they chose becomes unbearable to them exactly when you finally learn to live with it. That is the mystery every heartbroken person circles in the dark, and the answer will rearrange everything you believed about their return. The cycle works like this. Attachment runs on reaction, not on choice. When you move toward them, their system reads it as pressure and they pull back. When you pull back, their system reads the distance as safety and they relax. But here is the twist nobody warns you about. When you pull back far enough for long enough, a second alarm goes off on their side. Not the alarm that says danger, closeness, a different alarm, the one that says abandoned. So they reach out. Not because they healed. Not because they suddenly understand what they lost. But because distance, when it becomes complete, feels like a threat to them too. They are not coming back to you. They are coming back to the idea of you, to the safe background presence of a person who wants them. You were never a relationship to them at that point. You were an emotional insurance policy. And when the policy lapses, they renew it with a text. Here is the part that is almost cruel to learn. The silence you suffered through and the silence they imposed are not the same animal. On your side, silence is protest. Every instinct is screaming to reach out, to ask, to fix, and you are holding yourself back with both hands. The silence burns. On their side, silence is relief. Their nervous system finally gets the space it was begging for. Two people, one absence, two completely opposite experiences of it. That is why no contact feels so violent in the beginning. You are undergoing withdrawal from a chemical bond while the other person is finally able to breathe. But hold that thought, because this is where the experiment begins. When you remove your presence entirely, you stop feeding a loop that has been running on crumbs. Every glance, every reply, every tiny warmth you rationed out was fuel. The relationship did not survive on big moments. It survived on intermittent reinforcement, the most powerful reward schedule the human brain knows. This is why a person who is warm 1% of the time and cold 99% of the time creates a stronger attachment than someone who is simply warm. A slot machine does not pay out every time, and that is exactly why people cannot stop pulling the handle. The rare payout is unpredictable, so the brain stays locked on, waiting, scoring every absence as pain and every crumb as victory. In a strange, quiet way, in that fog, your wish was always being half fulfilled, just enough to hurt. And their wish was being fulfilled too, because they could keep you close enough to be safe from abandonment and far enough to be safe from love. That was the arrangement. Two people, one illusion, perfectly balanced, until you stopped playing, and when you stop playing, the balance shifts. Now something unexpected happens. Total distance triggers their proximity instinct. The brain that pushed you away now craves the signal that you still exist. So they send the text. Hey, a question about something trivial. A like on something old. A casual check-in with no real content. It is not a message. It is a probe. They're not asking if you miss them. They are testing whether you still have a pulse toward them, whether their insurance policy is still valid, whether they can still matter to someone without ever having to show up. And here is the brutal truth you must hear. When an avoidant returns, they often return to regulate their own fear, not to heal the relationship. They return because losing you entirely is scarier than having you at arm's length. So they pull you just close enough to feel safe in your wanting, and then the old alarm sounds again, and they retreat, and the cycle begins anew. The return was never proof of love. It was proof of fear, and the difference between the two will save you years of your life. So now you see the whole machine. The chase, the pull away, the silence, the random text. The hope that spikes every time, the crash that follows. Your fulfilled wish was always their eventual arrival. But their return was never arrival. It was a reflex, which leaves you standing in front of the hardest question this entire story has asked so far. If the fantasy was never real, and the return is not love, then what would it actually mean to live as if your wish is fulfilled, truthfully, without needing anyone to come back at all? Because everything in you has been trained to wait. And waiting, as it turns out, was the last fantasy standing. What would it mean to live as if your wish is fulfilled when the wish stops being about them entirely? Because that is the only version of that phrase that was ever real. Every promise you believed, every scene you rehearsed, every night spent waiting for a person to become who they never were. That was not living as if. That was living instead of feeling the loss. Living instead of admitting that the person in your head had already left, and you were the last one still speaking to them. The only wish you were ever guaranteed to fulfill was the one you could grant yourself. The rest was hope dressed as faith. When the fantasy finally dies, what has to break first is not your attachment to them. It is your attachment to the version of them that never existed. There is a grief nobody else can see because nobody else knew who you lost. Your friends watched a relationship end. You are watching something else die. A future. A promise you made alone. Mourn it like anything real because to your nervous system it was real. The body does not separate a loss it can touch from a loss it only imagined. It grieves both, and the grief is the healing. Every tear you hold back to look strong is a payment postponed, and the debt comes due in the next person you cannot trust. This is where the deeper work begins. Because underneath the grief sits something older than the relationship. A script. A belief about love you did not choose but have followed your whole life. Early on, your mind concluded what closeness means, what needing costs, what safety requires. That conclusion became a lens coloring everyone who walks near you. When the lens says love is earned by enduring, you will find people to endure for. When it says silence means something is wrong with you, you will read silence as your verdict. The person you lost was not the source. They were a mirror, and mirrors do not create what they reflect. The real wish fulfillment was never about finding someone who finally treats you well. It was about rewriting the lens so you stop mistaking mistreatment for love. This is the shift that changes everything. Not the fantasy of their return, not the fantasy of perfection. The quiet decision that your foundation is no longer another person's presence. You become your own safe place. You no longer need a signal from them to feel okay. You no longer check your phone to measure your worth. You no longer treat their silence as a verdict, and their attention as a pardon. And something strange happens when the move is made. The old pain does not vanish, but it loses authority. You notice the breadcrumb text and feel nothing but a faint memory of what it used to do to you. That is not numbness. That is the first honest feeling you have had in years because it does not depend on them. This is what no contact was actually for. Not a strategy to bring them back, though that hope kept you in it at first. Not a punishment, a boundary. A wall that finally said you are no longer available to the loop. And when a boundary is real, something inside you takes root. You stop performing your own life for an audience of one. You stop leaving the door open because an open door felt like keeping hope alive. You learn that hope aimed at someone who cannot meet you is not a virtue. It is a cage with the door unlocked. And walking out does not mean you stop loving. It means you stop paying rent on a room where you were never allowed to live. So what does it look like to finally live as if your wish is fulfilled? Like this. You wake up and your first thought is your own. You feel the ache of missing them and let it pass through you like weather. And somewhere in that letting pass, you realize you can hold your own heart. The wish is fulfilled not because everything arrived, but because it changed. It stopped being about their return and became about your wholeness. There is no delusion in that, no pretending. It is the one version of fulfilled that requires nothing from another human being. But here is what you deserve to know. Healing almost never announces itself. One day you will realize days pass without you thinking of them, and you will mourn it too, because letting go of the pain means letting go of the last thread that kept the story alive. That is the final test. Can you let the story end without needing to know who you were in it? The person who survived all of this was never waiting for them. They were waiting for themselves. And now the real question surfaces, the one underneath every other question. Not what you would have done if they had stayed, but who you become now that you are the only one answering for your life. Because that version of you, the one who no longer needs the dream to breathe, is the wish always meant to be fulfilled. And it is the only one that can never leave. And who you become next, when someone new finally walks up to that rebuilt wall, has not been written yet. That completes all 4 sections of the script. If you'd like, I can refine any section, lengthen it for a longer runtime, or put together the title hook and video description to match.